not even have enough for medicines or for food or for certain things or for rent. And so people have to rent a garage or a room. And so I think it's important in terms of the job creation, in terms of the noise ordinance. And, as Commissioner Padilla mentioned, they've really tried hard. Mr. Jimenez has tried hard to mitigate all the different issues. And there's always going to be, one person, whether you might have 20 people supporting something or one opposing something or two. Most of the time in these situations, you're never going to get 100%. So, appreciate Mr. Jimenez sharing his cell phone and communicating with the community. The issue with traffic in 101 is always going to be there, maybe in the morning where people are leaving to jobs and in the afternoon when they're coming back. But a lot of times for those people who travel, they know that the traffic is going towards San Jose and then coming in the afternoon for the most part. In terms of, like I said, in terms of the vendors that are outside, well, he really has no control over that. And for those, I would be ready to second the motion if some of those conditions that were mentioned by Commissioner Deal were there. And I'm not sure, I guess, to the point that would the staff be able to put something today and move this project to the end of the day, or would we have to postpone it and bring it back to a date certain? And so I don't know if the staff would have enough time to put something together and maybe bring it back at the end of the day. I don't know if that's too quick or if it's possible to be done or for it to be brought back, because I would support it whether today or in the future, because Mr. Jimenez has put a lot of work and he's really trying to help the community, and we've heard for most of the community. Thank you.
Well, I think we've heard that we'd like to have a motion and a second, and I think we've heard in favor of this project, and I think we've heard that the motion includes some modification to the noise condition, which is number 26. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So there's a motion by Commissioner Gomez, second by Commissioner Gonzalez to that effect, and we're now discussing that motion. Staff, do you have any input about potentially modifying this condition?
Yes, Chair Deal. Staff has been actively editing N1 during this hearing while listening to public comment. So if, Alex, if we could share the HDMI cable, we can look at staff's proposed edits. Okay, so the proposed edits include that following what Commissioner Daniels suggested, that the plan shall be reviewed and augmented as needed by a qualified biologist to ensure potential noise impacts to wildlife are considered as part of the design. The plan shall state the project maintains peak noise levels that do not become a nuisance to the neighborhood. Nuisance noise is understood to be levels greater than 100 dBA within 2,500 feet from an occupied dwelling unit. The plan shall include installation of permanent or temporary absorptive noise barriers and or planting of trees and shrubs to dampen noise. It is also further clarified that there would be an event-specific questionnaire for those hosts, and then adding that noise control to answer the questions, the concerns of Commissioner Deal. Noise control management shall include control of noise made during event setup, operation, and teardown. And the plan shall include annual updates in response to published animal behavioral studies that may reflect changes to wildlife movement within the area. So that's the idea, that if we find out that there really are mountain lion tracking through the Carneros Creek that crosses the project site, that there can be some augmentation to the noise control, or maybe even understood how amplified noise is affecting them at night. Changes to on-site lighting might even be proposed. And then adding some more deliverables. So currently, they were required to submit a draft noise management plan to be approved by planning and building services. So that would include our code enforcement team as well as the planning team. And now this would also have an annual report that would be handed in every year for 6 years. That would include the log of any noise complaints that are received about the project during the year, and provide their adaptive management strategies and how they worked. And then I'm not saying this ongoing because as the CAPS for planning department, I could say we are trapped. A lot of our staff are trapped with ongoing conditions that require monitoring forever, long past the need to be monitoring annual reports, not necessarily having to do with noise, but when other authorities step in and are managing, annual reporting. So in order to avoid that, it's just for 6 years, but then the chief of planning having the authority to require that report upon demand at any later date, and that they would have about a month to turn over a report. So that's the idea, that if we are receiving, building services is receiving a lot of complaints and it comes to the attention of the CAPS, and that's me at this time, but that's the condition of approval supervisor, that becomes an issue in which a condition of approval is not being maintained the way that it's supposed to be. And that it's actually in our program can be elevated to a code enforcement because it's a violation of the conditions of approval that go with the entitlement. So that's to say, we have the authority to require that the noise management plan be augmented to reduce issues in future. So I don't know if this is what you were looking for. You're welcome to add another line or say we're on the right track or not, but that is what staff has put together. Thank you.
Thank you for that work. Commissioner Shaw, let me start with you about your thoughts.
Thank you. Curious to know how the number of the 100 dBA was chosen. What informed that information? I guess it's the A-weighted decibel.
Sure. Anna King with HCD Planning. Just doing a search of typical noise levels for concerts. They're at about 100, some might be slightly over 100. So with the noise barriers installed, it should hopefully reduce that noise level from nearby residents.
Thank you. I asked that because someone had mentioned the Santa Cruz Fairgrounds, and I will say that noise carries through the valley to my house in District 2 quite clearly, and it's quite far away. And 100 dBA, just doing a very quick Google search, is exceeding the safe exposure amount and can cause permanent hearing damage. So I would be interested in that being a lower number, but also, and something I didn't ask before, are they allowed to have amplified noise, whether that be loudspeakers or music, outside, or is that only inside the venue? So, I mean, would they be able to have someone on a loudspeaker talking to a group of people in the parking lot at 10:45 at night, as this is proposed?
Through the chair, as I understand it, and perhaps we should bring that up, the general development plan isn't specific as to where any amplified noise would occur. So that said, it could occur inside or outside the barn structure.
I think the applicant made a noise, like, I'm going to reopen the hearing and let them speak to this particular question. I assume that's what you wanted to do. Is that correct?
I wasn't having a heart attack or anything.
I was wondering.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Anthony Lombardo. Maybe make this simple. Even though the noise ordinance doesn't apply to this project because it's a commercial zone, we will comply with it. So the noise ordinance that applies everywhere, which is at certain times of the day, certain amounts of noise can't be leave the property line, we'll comply with it. So it makes it easy. We don't have to guess about how or what, and we will monitor it. Because I have other clients that have commercial activities in Carmel Valley, particularly like Los Orellas in there, and they have a noise decibel meter, and they monitor the noise and make sure nobody exceeds the noise level. So that, I think, resolves it. But we will comply with the county. Our plan will comply with the noise ordinance, require monitoring and reporting on whatever. I think Mary's suggested language is more than sufficient for monitoring, and that way we don't have to guess at what or how or why. We'll just comply with the ordinance.
Are you otherwise in agreement with the language proposed?
That's fine. I don't know that I understand all of it, but it looks okay.
Very well. Does that address your concern, Commissioner Shaw?
I think so. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it.
Well, noise
need
is
a
like
minute.
that. Commissioner Monsalve, I didn't mean to skip over.
No problem. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I wanted to first express my gratitude to the applicant and the applicant's agent, because it's really refreshing to see how applicants and their representatives work positively and have a lot of communication with county staff to bring us a plan that we can actually all talk about and consider. That said, the comment that the applicant's representative made about adhering to the county ordinance relieves my concerns, especially because he mentioned that they have other clients who have to employ similar measures. Would that include that decibel monitor that a caller had commented on, seeing in action somewhere and feeling comfortable with that? I know that the representative commented on that, and I just want to make sure that that is in consideration. And my last point is regarding the language that Ms. Israel proposed. The report, let's see, Exhibit C, page 54, talks about the county noise ordinance having a limit of 70 decibels at 50 feet. If I'm reading this correctly, therefore events would not add noise impact during sensitive nighttime hours. Additionally, amplified noise equipment would be subject to section 10.60.030 of the Monterey County Noise Ordinance and could not generate noise levels in excess of 70 dBA at 50 feet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair, just to clarify and to ensure that we have the correct language. So if the applicant were to agree, or since the applicant has agreed that they would comply with the noise regulations, nighttime noise between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. would not be able to exceed 65 decibels. And then, so 65 decibels is similar to a conversation between two people. So we just want to ensure that that is a measure that would be successful should they have.
It's a question of where.
The where would be
Used to be at the property line, but
plainly audible at a distance of 50 feet or more in any direction from the source of the sound or any sound that exceeds the exterior noise levels set forth in Table 1.
okay, so it's whatever it is in the noise ordinance, which is already understood. Got that? Commissioner Roberts, more on the motion?
Sort of. One, this is way in the weeds, but it's something that I'd like to clean up if we're going forward. And in findings 1, evidence N, there's reference to, it says the GDP suggests that events such as drive-in movies will be timed to avoid peak traffic times. When I was reading the GDP, I didn't see anything about drive-in movies. So that either needs to be removed or explained or dealt with in some way. The other thing is, for me personally, also being a Salinas native and having left for 15 years, the Red Barn is absolutely when you know you're home. But at the same time, in the 15 years that I didn't live here, the Red Barn is also the source of, oh my God, I've got to go through Sunday traffic at the Red Barn before you get to where you're going. So my concern is, and I haven't witnessed that in recent years, which is amazing if that's what's happened. But I will say that I do worry a little bit about these events where everybody will be leaving at the same time. which isn't necessarily the case with a flea market type event. And so if Caltrans and the county are satisfied and have considered that, that's great. But kind of like the noise, I would love to see, hey, let's check on this over the next 6 years and make sure it's not a problem. And, that would be my suggestion for noise. For traffic.
Looking at the maker of the motion, and is there any willingness to ask staff to include a similar provision with respect to event traffic where participants come and go all at the same time? Or to rely on the existing reports?
I'm willing to rely on the existing report. I live in Prunedale. I drive that corridor every day, and traffic, whether the flea market is there or not, there's bad traffic on that road, especially in the mornings and especially after work. The various directions vary, right, depending on whether it's in the morning or the afternoon. But again, it's right next to the highway. If it's traffic, it's not traffic. It's traffic. It's already there. I don't anticipate creating much more traffic. Well, I think what I'm open to is encouraging the owner to monitor that and see if there's anything they could do. But I think I'm okay with the motion as it is.
Right. Commissioner Daniels?
Just an additional comment, having been a Prunedale resident for a number of years, the traffic from the Red Barn, and please correct me if I'm wrong, has improved significantly since the traffic improvement project. So I think it's just traffic, but you no longer have people waiting to turn or creating traffic because of the Red Barn. And if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I don't have the anxiety anymore driving through that it's the Red Barn that's going to cause me traffic.
No, it's the construction. Commissioner Shaw?
Trees.
Thank you. On that note, I literally use San Juan Road interchange when I have to go to the valley, which is often, so I'm often stuck in that traffic, or people trying to take Rocks Road or any of these roundabouts, and I haven't noticed anything from the Red Barn on Sundays when I've had to go out there. Not saying that that's not an issue, because it's an issue everywhere. I just don't know that they substantially contribute anything. I just had a question that I should have asked earlier, but just to satisfy my curiosity, if they were to book every available event day that they are permitted to do in this proposal, how many days of the year could they book out of 365?
260, 240? What is it?
Through the chair, the GDP lists 52 days anticipated for the social gatherings, and it is restricted by a condition of approval from Environmental Health Bureau to have only 30 corporate. So that is 82.
Okay, so thank you. So we're not opening the door to 270 days plus the weekends of...
in addition to the flea market.
In addition to, the flea markets I'm not concerned with. They can stay. It's not a problem, whatever. I just don't want to open that door to literally every day forever is booked, or every day in the summer that these people are having to deal with all the impacts, because there will be impacts for anything that's going on. So thank you for that clarification.
Okay. All right. We've got a motion on the floor. It is getting on to being quite late in the lunch hour. So either we want to wait until afterwards, or we think we're ready to make a Commissioner Roberts?
Just as a point of clarification, I know staff was discussing something else about the reference to drive-in movies.
My guess is that's remnant from the prior application and probably would be easily removable. I was looking to the applicant. Any problem removing that from the GDP?
No, don't drive in movies. But Mary did bring up an issue with the noise that I think we need to deal with, because the way the current ordinance is written is not the way you and I described it about at the property line. So that provision doesn't work, because the facility is so big. If you can't hear, you can't go over 60 decibels 50 feet. That's from here to the back of the room.
I think there may be, don't let me interfere because I'm not an expert on this. I thought there was a different for commercial facilities.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure, because the staff expressed some concern.
Okay, well, again, I'm happy to have it. My understanding of what's going forward is that the language we see will be the language, and it will be modified to represent that the project will comply with the noise ordinance. And I think that's a reasonable thing to do. Otherwise, we need to stop and really revise it, and I'm not inclined to do that for a couple of reasons. And I really appreciate the care with this, because while we are, I think, all in agreement that every evidence is that the current owner's done a great job and really turned things around. Permits run with the land, they don't run with the people. So we're trying to be specific so that should another person come along, they would be aware of the requirements, not just because being a nice person, but because you actually have to do it. So that's why we're clarifying things which the applicant has already said that they would do, and we are not, I don't intend to imply that I don't think they would. I was present for many of the earlier rounds of this, and I think Mr. Lombardo understates. We had not only this chamber's full, but we had the Monterey room full, and we still had overflow people who were on both sides with concerns about this project. So I want to note for the record the fact that that is not the case this time. It is important to me. It makes a big difference in the way that I think about the work that's been done for now. And then finally, while we're looking at a project like this, I want to speak up for, let's try, in the same way I think every residential housing unit should have a resident, I think that our developed commercial properties should be used to their fullest extent. That's where we plan to have commercial operations. That's the places where we need to do this, rather than developing new undeveloped areas that we all have all of these concerns about. So I'm in full support of the motion because of that. I really want to see us use what we've got better. I think that's one of the ways we can conserve, we can protect, and we can live up to that vision of our county that I just talked about in previous things. So that's my rant for this one. If there's no further comments, I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote on the motion, which I think we all understand, yes? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Any abstentions? So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the staff work that has gone into this, and I fully recognize it. We're going now to recess for lunch. It's 12:42, so we're not going to come back until 1:30. Can we make 1:30, people? No objection. We'll reconvene at 1:30. Okay, I think we are near ready. I don't see Commissioner Gomez, but I think everybody else who was here remains here and has reconvened. So we have a quorum, and perhaps he'll be back in a bit. Then we're going to reconvene and move on to item number 8 on our agenda, which is PLN 230337, the Edward Farrand Tobin and Sue Ann Rosenstock application. Right? Staff, take it away. That's a lot of names. I hope I got them right.
Good afternoon, Chair Deal and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Marlene Garcia, Project Planner for the Farrand Project, HCD Planning File, number PLN 230337. The subject properties are located at 24744 Dolores Street in Carmel within the Carmel Area Land Use Plan. The parcels are zoned medium density residential, 2 units per acre, design control overlay in the coastal zone. The applicant requests approval of a lot line adjustment between 4 legal lots of record totaling 1.571 acres and creates no new lot. The proposed lot line adjustment will rearrange the total acreage, which is still 1.571 acres, and result in 4 lots containing 0.614 acres, that would be for adjusted parcel A, and 0.425 acres for adjusted parcel B, 0.397 acres for adjusted parcel C, and 0.138 acres adjusted for parcel D, keeping the total of 1.57 acres. The intent of this lot line adjustment is to resolve existing non-conforming setbacks and better align the property boundaries with existing utility lines. The resulting lots will remain conforming to minimum lot size, maximum density, structural coverage, and floor area, and this lot line adjustment will resolve all non-conforming setbacks except for parcel B. Adjusted parcel B will contain a garage and office, and as a result of the adjustment, the setback from the office will conform to the side, rear, and front setback from Pescadero Road. There is a new easement proposed which requires a 50-foot setback. Existing setback is 18.5 feet as a result of the adjustment and the setback from the proposed easement. It will maintain that distance and it will not increase the nonconformity. The proposed access easement has been designed and located to ensure that the setbacks of the existing structure doesn't increase the nonconformity, but maintains the 18.5 feet. And that is shown here. The project was referred to the Carmel Unincorporated Highlands Land Use Advisory Committee on September 3rd, 2024, which voted 4-0, with 3 members absent, to recommend approval of the project as proposed. The LUAC discovered that existing parcel B square footage was incorrectly listed on the plans and requested that this be updated. Additionally, the LUAC requested that HCD planning staff review access for all 4 parcels, including any proposed or existing easements. The LUAC also raised concern about future development and the potential inability to provide adequate on-site parking. Staff received correspondence from a member of the public requesting clarification of the intent of the lot line adjustment of current lots and about future development, as well as access on the adjusted parcels. No development is proposed at this time, but if that was to happen, or if when that happens, the applicant is required to conform to the Monterey County Code requirements in effect at the time and obtain all necessary permits. As proposed, all resulting parcels will have adequate access and are adequately sized and sited to accommodate potential future parking demands and development. At this time, staff recommends adding condition of approval number 6, indemnification agreement. In conclusion, staff recommends Planning Commission find that the lot line adjustment categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15303 and approve a coastal development permit to allow a lot line adjustment between 4 legal lots of record No additional lots will be created. Staff concludes presentations and is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. All right. Are there any technical questions for staff? Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you. I don't know if it's a technical question, and I don't know if you can even speak to this. I'm just really curious if you have any idea why there is this concern that the lots are too small for adequate parking, because when I look at these lots, they're pretty freaking big, and even the smallest one is fine. So where is that concern? I know that's not for this application because that's for potentially future development, but I think that's something that I want to explore because that was brought up as a concern. Why were they worried about that? Is there something that I'm not getting from this?
I believe, through the chair, I believe that the concern was more of parking on the street. I think that was more the concern, not necessarily parking on on the parcels.
Through the chair, I was just reading the LUAC notes, and they were saying 2 of the resultant lots are so small that each would probably not have adequate parking. But these are big lots. LUAC got this exact square footage, right? Maybe the applicant can speak to that later. Thank you.
Any other technical questions? Commissioner Daniels?
Yes, I'm wondering if you could pull up that last photograph that showed the school and where the lot was located in relationship to the school, Pescadero Road, and Dolores. Yeah, okay, great. So looking at this image, I realize I didn't quite have an understanding of where these lots were. Is that the school that goes behind where it says 24744? Is that still the school that extends below? And where is the connection to Pescadero?
So Pescadero is over here.
Right.
And Dolores Street is
right here.
It's really hard to.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the entry. This is the address that we are. This is the entry to the project that we are presenting.
So if that's this, and maybe I'm not looking at the rooftop of the school and I'm seeing something else, is the school just this area below the red identification location thing? Or is the school, I wanted to understand and be able to address the concern that came in through public comment about whether or not new lots that were formed would use Pescadero and not Dolores as their ingress and egress. Does this lot border on Pescadero? These new lots, all 4 of them. I guess my question is, I thought they did. It looks like they do, but the picture looks different, and I'm wondering if I just somehow have it wrong.
Through the chair, just to clarify, Ms. Garcia is looking it up, and resulting lots A, B, and C do have front on Pescadero. However, with providing the access road, access to adjusted parcel A and B would be through Dolores via the access easement. And then the photo that's shown on the slide is a bit misleading. There's bare dirt area that has the same color as the roofing.
Okay.
Material. So just...
That helps me. It's bare dirt. That's not roof. Yeah. Okay. Got it. So the picture on page 21 in the staff report is actually clearer. I do see that now. And we're talking in the staff report, it's lots 5, 7, 9, and I'm not sure where the number is on the other one that we're talking about in this subdivision. I'm answering my own question. This is fine. Thank you so much.
We like efficient conversations. Commissioner Roberts?
I think you probably said this, but if you would bring back the graphic you had of the comparison of the before and after of the lot lines, and if you can show me I guess the original, yes, that one, perfect. So my question is, parcel C is currently a developable lot?
Yes, they're all developable lots.
And parcel C currently does not have access directly to either Dolores or Pescadero. Is that true, or is that little jag of a line
So
going to Dolores?
through the chair, there's also an existing easement. So parcel C is also accessed.
Is it through parcel D, an easement through parcel D?
So yeah, there's an easement. So right here, if you can see the clicker here.
Yeah.
So the pointer. So there's an existing easement here that gives access to existing parcel C, and same to parcel D.
And then last question, it's probably in the packet, but just looking at this, what's the existing size of parcel C?
So parcel. So through the chair, parcel C. Why am I not seeing it? Yeah, I guess I'm looking at the.
If you want to come back to it, it's also fine. I'm guessing it's in there. I just was, this was a good graphic for me, and
Let me pull up my the plans because I was looking at the resolution.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Okay, yeah. So existing parcel C has a total of 3,200 square feet.
okay, we put that graphic back up just so I can see. So it's like 6,000 square feet, so it's doubling the size?
Yes. Actually, parcel C will be the 17,103 square feet, and then the smaller part will be now adjusted parcel D, which will have a 6,025 square foot.
Sorry, one last time. The existing parcel C was what, 3,000?
Existing parcel C, was 3,200 square feet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Seeing no one, is the applicant or the applicant's representative here? Would you like to come and say something? Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Angie Ferris. I'm with Hastings Construction. And the reason for these lot line adjustments is that currently the lot lines are going through existing structures, and they do not conform with existing setbacks. So the idea is to adjust these so that way they do conform and that the lots themselves conform with what's the minimum size requirements for parcels in this area. There is potential for parcel C, the 17,000 square foot one, to potentially have access to Pescadero as their driveway and no longer use the access easement that's currently being used on the new adjusted parcel D. But in terms of the letter that we received, it's not where that person was talking about. It's further down. It's a straighter area of the road. There's no visual issues. And it's just a proposal at this time. There's no development in place. So there is potential for it to go on Pescadero for that one lot. The rest of them will be accessing Dolores with the easements that we've created and the one that's already existing. Excuse me, the two that are already existing. And I'm available for any questions or comments.
You don't have any further presentation or anything you want to highlight?
Not really. The way these lots sit currently, there's a lot of unconformities. It makes it difficult to develop these lots as they sit without demolishing structures, which we don't really want to do. So really the point of this is just to make it so that these are more developable lots. That's really it.
Unless somebody has a question for you, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody here in the public who would like to comment on this matter? I see nobody in the chambers. Is there anyone online? Madam Clerk?
There are no hands up on Zoom and no additional emails.
Very well. Then since there's nothing to respond to, I'm not going to invite the applicant to respond. Staff, any further thoughts based on anything the applicant might have said?
No, nothing additional.
Nothing at this time. Commissioner Shaw.
Just a quick question. As the lots are currently, what is the maximum number of units, including ADUs and JADUs, that could be developed across the 4 parcels? And then with the lot line adjustment, what are we looking at as the total number of single-family homes, ADUs, and JADUs that could be built?
Through the chair, so this is a medium density residential, so there's 2 units per acre, and potentially each unit would have an ADU.
Sorry, to clarify, maybe she's going to do that, sorry.
So just to break down the math of
Microphone?
maybe I should turn my microphone on.
Maybe you should.
So just to break down the math. So with the density of 2 units per acre, the existing lots do not have sufficient square footage to allow establishment of more than the first single family dwelling. But through our current code, they would have an ability to establish 1 home and 1 accessory dwelling unit.
Through the chair. And then after the lot line adjustment, does that change?
Adjusted parcel A, so 1/2 acre would be 21,780 square feet. So adjusted, actually, yes, I'm wrong. So currently, existing parcel B and existing parcel D would have sufficient square footage to allow 2 single-family dwellings with proper permits. As a result of the adjustment, only adjusted parcel A would have that ability.
So thank you. So total, it would actually go down.
It would.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, comments from the commission? Anybody ready to do anything? There's no discussion. It's probably time for an action. Commissioner Daniels?
Do this. Might as well make some action on my last day here.
Go for it.
I will move to adopt a resolution that complies with the staff's recommendation.
And that would include the staff's recommended additional indemnification agreement condition?
Yes, that would include the additional indemnification.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Monsalve. So it's been moved by Commissioner Daniels and seconded by Commissioner Monsalve, can't talk after lunch, to adopt staff's recommendation to approve this application with the added condition as articulated by staff. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Any abstentions? And the motion carries, and the recommendation is adopted. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Garcia, getting us through that. We are now at our agenda item number 9. Agenda item number 9 is PLN 240128, the Golden Gate Assets Limited Partnership. And I don't recall who I wrote down was the planner for this. So Mr. Alameda, are you up?
I am.
Take us away.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Deal, Planning Commissioners. My name is Joseph Alameda, Project Planner for HCD file number PLN 240128, Golden Gate Assets. The project is located at 24656 Guadalupe Street in Carmel within the Carmel Area Land Use Plan. The subject property is zoned medium density residential with a density of 2 units per acre and a design control overlay in the coastal zone. The project involves the demolition of 1,717 square feet of an existing 2,507 square foot single family dwelling and the construction of a 2,306 square foot single family dwelling with an attached 318 square foot garage and an attached 790 square foot 2-story office/game room, which will be retained from the original residence. Additionally, the project involves the removal of 1 protected coast-live oak tree and a merger between 2 legal lots of record. As proposed, the project involves the removal of 13 trees, including 4 native coast-live oak trees that were identified in the arborist report to be in good to fair conditions and located within the proposed structural and landscape footprint. A coastal development permit is required for the removal of 1 16-inch coast-live oak, indicated by the red star on screen, pursuant to the Carmel Coastal Implementation Plan, which protects native trees over 12 inches in diameter and requires on-site replanting. None of the other native trees proposed for removal are over 12 inches in diameter, and as cited and designed, the proposed development avoids impacts to 2 other protected trees, including a 31-inch landmark oak, indicated by the green star on screen. The Carmel Coastal Implementation Plan prohibits the removal of landmark trees unless specific findings can be made. In this case, the relocation of the driveway intentionally avoids impacts to the landmark tree. The proposed tree removal is limited to that which is necessary for the proposed development, which in this case is the 1 16-inch coast-live oak. Measures for tree protection during construction have been incorporated as a condition of approval and include tree protection zones, trunk protection, hand excavation, and bridging routes. During staff's lot legality determination, it was discovered that the existing single-family residence was developed over 2 legal lots of record, each containing 0.099 acres or 4,312 square feet. The lots have been historically sold and developed together, as have several other lots on the block. Although the lots were legally created through the Carmel Woods Addition 1 subdivision, the existing lots do not conform to the current zoning district's minimum lot size requirement of 6,000 square feet. The resulting lot of the proposed merger will have a building site of 0.198 acres or 8,624 square feet, which will be consistent with the requirements of the zoning district. Additionally, the existing single-family dwelling straddles over the existing legal lots and is therefore non-conforming as to the setback requirements for the medium-density residential zoning district. The proposed lot merger will result in 1 legal lot of record, which will allow the proposed single-family dwelling to conform to the required setbacks. The proposed development will have colors and materials consisting of a dark brown shingle roof, cream-colored stucco siding, tan-colored wood siding, and a dark gray wood garage door. The proposed development will maintain the cottage and traditional architectural styles of the surrounding residences. Though the proposed size of the residence will be slightly larger than the average residence within the block, the additional square footage is appropriate given the property's unique circumstance of containing multiple lots. Further, the additional size will not result in a bulk or mass that is incompatible with neighborhood character. The proposed reduction in height and size will result in a residential structure that is more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood than the existing residence. The project went before the Carmel Highlands LUAC on October 7th, 2024, and the LUAC members voted 4-0 to support the project as proposed. Staff recommends the addition of the indemnification agreement standard condition as condition number 10 to the project's conditions of approval. And finally, staff recommends the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt pursuant to sections 15302 and 15305 of the CEQA guidelines, and approve a combined development permit consisting of a coastal administrative permit and design approval to allow the demolition and replacement of a single-family dwelling, a coastal development permit to allow the removal of 1 protected coast-live oak, and a coastal development permit to allow a merger between 2 legal lots of record. That concludes staff's presentation, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you. So in words of one syllable, for those of us who just had our lunch, we have currently got 2 lots with 1 house on it. What are we going to end up with 1 lot with 2 houses on it?
1 lot with 1 home.
1 lot with 1 house on
Yes.
it? Okay. Just this, the other separate one, I didn't realize whether it was a house or not. Okay. Technical questions for staff? Anyone? Mr. Shaw?
All right, so I'm just going to ask. I know we're, always in some of these cases looking at lots and trying to minimize the trees that are cut down, protected trees that are cut down. And I'm looking at the plan here for tree 2, 3, and 4. Was it ever suggested that the applicant or asked, because these seem like they would be really easy to adjust the building footprint, not lose much size, especially because it's bigger than the houses in the neighborhood already, and move that little extra portion of the driveway and then not have to cut down 3 of those trees. I don't know if that was ever broached with the applicant.
So there was no discussion in regards to specific trees. There was reductions by the applicant and their agent in certain areas of the home to reduce some impacts to certain trees. The applicant might better be able to speak to specific trees, but they did reduce some things to protect certain protected trees, including the landmark tree.
Okay, any further questions of the staff at this time? Seeing none, is the applicant or the applicant's representative here? Would you like to come forward? I don't see anyone coming forward in the chambers. Perhaps they're online. Samuel Pitnick, is that the correct person?
Yes, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Hear you?
You can. Okay, great. Yeah, good afternoon. This is Sam Pitnick. I'm the architect for the Guadalupe Street project. Sorry, I can't be there in person today. Thank you, Joseph, for that presentation. So yeah, just to kind of give you an overview, as Joseph mentioned, the proposed project consists of removing the existing 1-story house on the property. This structure was built in the 1930s, added on to over the years. And so the house is kind of a hodgepodge of different levels and roof lines, styles, and the interior layout really isn't ideal. The existing house is also pushed pretty far back onto the property, which, while provides for a nice large front yard, doesn't really provide my client with very much privacy. So we're proposing to tear down this section of the house and build a new 1-story home, 2,168 square feet in size, closer to the front setback, and then the attached 1-car garage will be in the southeast corner of the property. The new house will be U-shape with the main living spaces, kitchen and laundry, oriented north-south, kind of along the street side of the property. And then the north wing of the house, running east-west, will have 3 beds, 2 bathrooms. The south wing of the house will contain another bedroom with bathroom and the garage. This U-shaped home will also create a private courtyard towards the rear of the property, and the courtyard would be finished in a permeable gravel material. The existing 2-story section of the house was built more recently in the early 2000s, so we are proposing to keep and remodel this structure. This section of the house will be used as bonus space with a TV kind of game room downstairs, and then upstairs we'll have an office and a gym. We'll connect this structure back to the new 1-story house with a wood pergola along the south yard. The new portion of the house will be about 16 feet high, which is well below the 30-foot height limit. So we think the size, scale, and style of the structure is compatible with the neighboring homes, even if it is a little larger as far as square footage is concerned. As Joseph had mentioned, the house will be clad in stucco and wood siding and will have an asphalt shingle roof. Because the site slopes from front to back, the existing 2-story structure at the rear of the property will actually only end up being about 3 feet higher than the new house. So you won't see too much of this from the street, and we kind of avoid a tower-like appearance with this, 2-story structure potentially rising up above a 1-story home. But again, it'll only be about 3 feet taller than the proposed house in front. We are proposing a new permeable paver driveway along the south side of the property, providing 2 off-street parking spaces, 1 covered in the garage and 1 uncovered adjacent. The question about trees, avoiding trees did come up, and Joseph did touch upon it. We do have that very large 31-inch landmark oak at the north end of the property. And early into concept design, we were finding it very difficult to try and do a new garage and a new driveway on that side of the property while protecting the oak tree. I think just either way that the driveway was going to get too close to the oak tree for comfort. So we opted to shift that to the south, which the compromise there are two much smaller oak trees for removal. Along the front of the property, there are some additional unprotected trees we are proposing to remove in the right-of-way. We think this will kind of help to clean up the property as well as the shoulder along Guadalupe, and also provides a bit more of a shoulder for off-street parking on a street that really doesn't have much off-street parking to begin with. For the one protected oak tree that we are proposing to remove, we did consult Rob Thompson, our arborist, on this, and we'll work with him to either try and relocate the tree or replace it with the appropriate ratio per the proposed condition of approval today. And then, as Joseph did mention, the last part of this project does include the merger of the two existing lots into one single lot. When my client first purchased the property, we actually weren't aware that these were still two separate legal lots. And I think the main reason for that is just because the original home was built across both properties, and it's been that way for 90 years. So part of the approval today will allow us to combine these two lots into one single lot, and that will allow the new structure plus the existing two-story structure to meet all setback and site coverage requirements of this single larger lot. So we've read through all the conditions of approval and take no exceptions. We think the proposed project will greatly improve the look and functionality of the property and will fit in nicely with the surrounding homes and neighborhood. So we hope you'll approve the project today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers who would like to speak on this matter? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone online, Madam Clerk?
There are no additional emails and no additional hands up on Zoom.
Very well. That being the case, there's nothing to respond to, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to staff. Staff, anything to add?
Not at this time, Chair.
Okay. I have one question before we start, because it may take a little looking into. This is in Pescadero, the Pescadero watershed, I believe. Is that correct?
No, it is not.
Okay. It just looked to me like it was on this. I couldn't tell which side of the hill it was on.
Yeah, it's not within the Pescadero watershed.
Great. That was my question.
Great.
Commissioner Roberts?
I might have missed this in the first round also, but I'm curious about the existing two-story part of the building that's staying as what we're asked to approve as a non-habitable office game room. And so I assume that means there's no bedrooms and there's no kitchens and that kind of thing. However, I'm curious to know to me this looks like an ADU without a bed in it. And so I'm curious to know how, if this happens, can it be used as a short-term rental? Can it be used as a long-term rental?
The Chair, no, it cannot. That was a discussion we had with the applicant early on, and they understand that this is to be used as a non-habitable office/game room and that it can't be rented out. And they removed the proposed bedroom and independent living facilities. So yeah, there's no independent living facilities, and it cannot be independently rented out.
And I guess, I mean, my only other question is, it's one of those, like, how do we enforce that? Is that something that, maybe that's a council question, or I don't know, or if this is just the way things are, and I haven't realized it, and now thinking about these bigger issues with long and short-term rentals.
I think Commissioner Daniels wanted to weigh in if she could on this particular topic, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that Commissioner Roberts is bringing up, because in the Carmel area land use plan short-term rental ordinance that's going to the Coastal Commission, if I remember correctly, this could, as a structure, unless we put something explicit, be like a guest house if there's a room, right? And so I guess the concern would be is that this would be something that could potentially be considered a homestay and be a very easy way to do a short-term rental if there's a room. So I'm just curious if that's something we want to address as we go through this application. Thank you.
Reddy's leaning forward too. Ms. Kenga, you want to start?
Okay. Just quickly, the way that the floor plan is proposed, there would not be a bedroom. However, that's not to say a property owner could come through with a building permit just to do an interior upgrade and create a bedroom. When we're looking at either habitable space or non-habitable space that's in proximity to a main dwelling, we oftentimes look at unity of use to make sure that it really looks and feels and functions like one dwelling versus one house and a separate guest quarter. So review of this particular application, it does appear to function with unity of use. If or when the Coastal Commission certifies our update to vacation rental ordinance, the applicant or the property owner would have to apply for a ministerial permit for a homestay, and they would have to indicate which portions of the home would be used for the homestay, and that would also have to meet our code. So if it isn't a bedroom, that should then trigger planning review so we can find consistency.
Thank you through the chair. That's really helpful. I guess it's bringing up some new questions that I didn't know I had. I mean, if this ordinance passes, the short-term rental ordinance, I'm not saying that this particular individual doesn't have the right to do a homestay. I want to be very clear about that. That's the ordinance. They get to move forward. But I guess the question that's coming up for me is, what's the difference between an office and a bedroom? And how do we, and is that an important distinction that we're trying to make in this application right now? I know, for example, bedrooms have to have windows, but I think these rooms appear to have windows. And so I'm just more interested in the fact that we're identifying this space as office and exercise room, and why that's important and what we're trying to accomplish.
If I can follow up on Commissioner Daniels' question, I guess I'm wondering, similarly, could this just be an ADU, and why isn't it?
And whether or not non-habitable structures count towards square footage.
If I may, just in response to the vacation rental regulations question, so there is a definition in the adopted regulations that very specifically says that a bedroom means a habitable room of a dwelling unit which is 70 square feet or greater in size for the first individual, 50 square feet for each additional, has an exterior door or window for egress, has a closing door that separates the room from other areas of the dwelling, so it would meet that. And then it lists a number of items that would not be. So I think in this case, yeah, it's at least by definition, it on the face could possibly meet that definition.
Through the chair.
It alternatively says that a bedroom is not a family room. That might be the one if we are maybe more explicit in the definition of what the room is or is not. It does specifically say it's not a family room. So I think that might, perhaps if it's an office or a rec room. And if it is, so I guess the question of whether or not, I don't think this meets the intent of a bedroom, and if we were reviewing an application, potentially would view it, as long as it's very clear in the entitlement, this is an office and extra space, as a family room. That's not a bedroom. That being said, if it were a homestay, again, the individual would have to identify what rooms are to be rented and which ones are not to be rented. And so I don't think on the face that this, as proposed in the entitlement, would be one that could be rented as a part of a homestay. But again, that doesn't, in terms of enforceability, should someone choose to have individuals sleep there, is a little bit different question.
That and converting an existing structure to an ADU is something that we're encouraging. So it doesn't say only habitable structures for that.
No, if it were to be converted to an accessory dwelling unit specifically, then it could not be rented as any part of a vacation rental.
But it would be a separate and additional housing unit on that property.
Yes, if it were to go through the process and convert formally to an accessory dwelling unit.
Yes, Mr. Alameda, I'm sorry we were not letting you talk.
No, yes, through the chair. Just to provide a little bit of clarity, early plans for this project did show a bedroom in that. They intended it to be just an additional bedroom to the home, not to be rented out. I informed them that the wooden trellis would not count for internal circulation, and therefore it would need to be considered a guest house. They did not want a guest house, and therefore changed the internal plans to a family room / game room, just extra space for the home, and moved the bedroom to inside the home. So they explicitly did not want a guest house, and that was clarified, and those are the plans that you have.
Thank you. I just want to register that, again, I am not in any way suggesting that the applicant is not telling us precisely what their intentions are, but the permits run with the land. They don't run with the people. So it's not just about them. Commissioner Shaw?
On that note, I mean, for me, when I look at this, I don't see this bonus room as the potential bedroom. I'm seeing the gym as the bedroom. It even has a closet that makes it look like a bedroom. So it's just a matter of labeling it. I don't know if that means anything. And then I was curious, if I remember correctly, some of the homestay stuff had to do with what kitchen kind of amenities were available, correct? And so this one doesn't have like a stove. It doesn't have a refrigerator. It just has that mini bar. So yeah, I was just pointing that out. I don't know if that makes any difference. I think I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Thank you. I believe that for homestays, they're not supposed to have a kitchen. It's just renting a bedroom in the house. So that would be my recollection. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Commissioner Roberts.
So I'm still confused because I don't understand what the benefit or disbenefit of having a guest house versus what they're proposing is. And again, I don't care what this property owner wants to use it as. It's if they sell it in 2 weeks, what the expectation is from somebody who purchases it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know the applicant is willing to speak to that, but I wanted to make sure we had a chance to discuss it before. Commissioner Daniels, before we reopened it for that input.
And before we do that then, through the chair, if staff could just reiterate, because the trellis situation has come up before, why this decision was made, that the trellis does not, as you said, it's not internal circulation, it's external, and that's the reason why this was identified as an office and a game room and not a bedroom in the house. Can you just reiterate what you said and why that's important?
Yeah, so originally the plan showed the bedroom, but showed the wooden trellis connecting the bedroom that I told them we would identify as a guest house to the home. Mm-hmm. I told them they would need to enclose that if they wanted to keep that bedroom in there, or they would need to propose it as a guest house. They did not want the guest house. They wanted to keep the wooden trellis. And so they moved the bedroom to inside the home and turned that into an office / game room and used the wooden trellis, which gives them structural connection, which allows them to have setbacks and site development standards of the main home, but doesn't provide internal circulation with the home and therefore is an accessory structure to the home rather than a part of the home.
And then just through the chair, when somebody has a guest house, it's something that is marked on the plans that are held by the county, and it's identified as a guest house. And for me, that answers my question regarding the short-term rental situation. And if someone were to come for an application, that also answers my question that this would not be a bedroom because of the reasons you just stated. So my questions on this front are answered. I really do appreciate that.
I guess I have one more, which is, would a guest house have been a use they could have applied for in this situation? Is it something that is allowed?
Yes, they could have, but they are over in height. So they are over in height, but we do have an exception process for that where you apply for a coastal development permit subject to a hearing at the ZA to go over in height. But certain findings have to be made, and in this instance, the applicant opted not to go that route and instead move the bedroom out of the space.
Very well. If we have had that discussion, I'm going ahead and open the public hearing to the applicant's representative to speak briefly on this topic, should you care to do so. Mr. Pitnick?
Yeah, thank you for letting me speak again. And I thought, I could just kind of try to provide some clarification and backstory behind this two-story structure. So, as Joseph mentioned, we weren't really interested in pursuing as a guest house or an ADU. One, we were above the height limit, as was mentioned, and two, we don't have the water credits currently to put in a full kitchen. So we weren't really ever able to make it a secondary living unit, so never wanted to pursue it as such. The existing two-story structure, it's in good shape. We really felt like there's no reason to tear it down. And actually from the second floor, it does have some nice views with peaks of the ocean. And so my client felt that it was important to kind of keep that and be able to use that space. We have no intention of renting it out and understand it would be illegal to do so. I think if it would give the commission a little more peace of mind, we're happy to incorporate any language you feel necessary within a deed restriction or anything else that can get recorded, that can run with the property, indicating that this is not a secondary unit, cannot be rented out. And if down the road the rules change or property owners change, obviously they would have to go through the necessary steps to apply for that change. But there's no intention of it to be a bedroom or rent it out. Hopefully that kind of provides some explanation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to bring it back to the commission again. And I think there has been a lot of discussion indicating that the lack of development potential due to the lack of water is not necessarily a permanent state of affairs. I think we all hope that it won't be. And so I'm looking at this and I can't help say this is an ADU waiting to get water credit. It seems like that's what it is to me. Now, I am not personally sure that's a bad thing. So on the other hand, I'm not in any, but are we counting, how does that square footage count in development square footage? Does it count differently if it's a non-habitable structure? So it's just counted the same. But I don't think I don't get the idea of trying to represent it as anything else. I think we really have to look at it as a potential second unit on that property and make sure we're comfortable with that, because sure looks like that's what's coming up to me. So regardless of current intent, given current limitations, understood all that. So, and plus, tell you what, there's going to be an airbed in there and some grandchildren or something at one of these days. I'm telling you. Commissioner Roberts?
For reasons you just articulated, I also am not opposed to seeing this as an ADU someday. I guess my only concern is, in that way, I would not want to put a deed restriction on it, even though the applicant has offered that. But if there's just somehow we can clarify that it currently, this was the intent, this is how it was improved, and if it were to come back for a short-term rental, long-term rental, whatever, this is what needs to happen. As long as that's clear, so that if somebody purchases it in 2 weeks, they understand that that's what's, coming back to what we see here, somebody shows up and says, well, it had a closet, it had windows, we saw it as a bedroom, it was sold as a, whatever. That's all I would be trying to.
Yeah, I actually think the current permit's pretty clear on what is anticipated, but I know that the enforcement issue remains. We're all well aware of that. But if we understand it in that respect, what does that do? What is our opinion? What do we think should happen? Should we go ahead and, understanding all of that, somebody want to make a motion or not? Or Commissioner Getzelman?
Yes, thank you. I understand all of the above, and I still think that if we eventually end up with an extra ADU, that is not a bad thing. So I would like to recommend approval of staff's recommendation.
And would that include the indemnification and condition addition?
I always include that. Wendy Strimling made me understand that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Getzelman and seconded by Commissioner Daniels that we approve staff's recommendation for this particular item. and including adding, I think it's condition number 10, which would be the indemnification agreement as recommended by staff. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Alameda. All right, that brings us to item number 10 on today's agenda. What time is it? Yes, I'm just thinking we'll probably take a break somewhere in the middle of this, depending on how long it goes. Item number 10 is PLN 220122, the Castroville Self-Storage LLC. And Ms. Nelson, did I see? Is that who it is? Turn it over to staff. We have a whole bench full of staff people over there. Whichever one of you wishes to present, please commence when ready.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair Deal and Planning Commissioners. I'm Kayla Nelson, Project Planner for Planning File Number PLN 220122 for the Castroville Self-Storage LLC project. Co-presenting with me today is Supervising Planner Mariel Israel. The project is located at 10520 Templadera Street in Castroville, which is guided by the Castroville Community Plan, or CCP. Within the CCP, a land use classification designation is used to identify appropriate land uses rather than referring to zoning districts. The parcel is predominantly classified as mixed use, which allows mini warehouse storage facilities and residential units. Along the southern property line and adjacent to the Templadero Slough is classified as resource conservation. This portion of the property will be put into a conservation and agricultural buffer easement, which will be covered later in this presentation. The proposed project is a use permit and design approval to allow construction of a 54,409 square foot, 446 unit mini warehouse storage facility with 9 single-story buildings and a 2-story mixed-use building consisting of a 1,294 square foot office on the first floor with the same square foot residential unit on the second floor, as well as associated site improvements. The project requires up to 16,000 cubic yards of imported fill to raise the development out of the Templadero Slough floodway fringe, which will also be covered in this presentation. The bottom left photo shows the installed staking and flagging at the project site. The proposed colors and materials of the mini warehouse facility consist of vertical, light, and dark gray steel siding broken up with a mix of light and dark gray concrete masonry unit block columns, gray standing C-metal roof, and light green sectional metal roll-up doors with beige steel headers using the color palette on this slide. Similar in architectural design, the office will be constructed using vertical gray metal siding with dark gray metal door and window frames and a dark gray metal garage door. The residential unit above will have gray and beige stucco for a contrasted design. Slide 5 has the proposed street elevations showing the mix of gray and metal siding with concrete columns. The applicant plans to put a hand-painted community mural on the wall to the right of the office. Additionally, the street front will be landscaped to break up the mass of the proposed development. Slide 6 shows the typical storage buildings with their respective finishes. The proposed height of the storage unit is approximately 10 feet, and the mixed-use building would be 21 feet 1 inch. The project was conditioned to include a formal exterior lighting plan to ensure compliance with the Castroville Community Plan design guidelines and Monterey County lighting ordinance. The proposed Castroville storage sign is 32 square feet of surface area with 17-inch LED letters backlit in light green. The sign will be flush mounted to the top facade of the two-story building. The sign follows the mixed use and commercial sign guidelines consistent with the Castroville Community Plan and does not exceed the 35 square foot limitation. The 446-unit warehouse, mini warehouse storage facility and two-story mixed-use building would have a comparatively similar layout to other commercial developments in the vicinity. The proposed development fills a vacant lot, which is adjacent to a roofing supply warehouse to the northwest, as shown in the upper left photo, and a boat and trailer storage facility to the southeast, as shown in the upper right photo. Across the street is the Girl Scouts of California Central Coast Offices and Leadership Center. As proposed, the visual structure will remain comparable to the character of other developments in the surrounding neighborhood. Additionally, the property is not located within a visually sensitive area, and the development will not have a significant impact on public viewshed due to distance and topography, as well as the existing development on the sides of the parcel. The project was referred to the Castroville Land Use Advisory Committee on November 7th of 2023. The committee reviewed the project and had no objections to the design or the concept of a community mural painted on the street front wall next to the office building. The parcel was unanimously recommended for approval by a vote of 3-0 with 2 members absent. The project was referred to the Agricultural Advisory Committee on January 25th of this year because the project is adjacent to an active agricultural operation. At the meeting, the landscape plan and proposed vegetation were reviewed and found appropriate and compatible with the adjacent farmland's row crops. Additionally, the proposed agricultural buffer, which includes the width of the Tembladero Slough for the mixed-use building with residential unit, was found consistent with Monterey County Code because it exceeds the required 200-foot buffer from the adjacent ag field. However, the committee members unanimously recommended to continue the project to a date uncertain to allow time for circulation of the initial study by a vote of 9-0 with 3 members absent. On October 24th of this year, the project returned to the committee for their recommendation. Concerns were raised regarding potential flooding of the Tembladero Slough and the CCP's vision of a linear park, including a pedestrian trail along the slough and the resource conservation portion of the parcel. Staff addressed these concerns by highlighting the hydrology and water quality analysis of the initial study, along with the letter from consulting civil engineers Schaff and Wheeler, stating the placement of fill is outside the floodway. Additionally, the proposed installation of stormwater drainage system will help reduce flooding. Staff also stated that trail facilities are not allowed within agricultural buffer easements pursuant to Monterey County Code. The AAC voted 6-2 with 4 members absent to recommend approval of the project, with a comment to the Planning Commission that if a trail is to be considered in the future, said trail shall be on the urban side of the slough. The Agricultural Commissioner later clarified to HCD staff that a pedestrian trail is not feasible at this time due to food safety and Title 20 and 21 regulations. The project includes a 9,985 square foot landscape and irrigation plan to be installed around the perimeter of the development, consisting of 19 trees, 115 shrubs, rock mulch ground cover with erosion control blanketing. The majority of the parcel is located within the 100-year FEMA floodplain of the Tembladero Slough. 16,000 cubic yards of fill will be imported to raise the development 1 foot above base flood elevation. Site improvements would include the installation of a stormwater drainage system that includes 5 infiltration chambers, sub-drains, area drains, drop inlets with media filters and downspouts. The stormwater that is collected would be transported through subsurface stormwater pipes before being captured in an isolator row. Potential overflow of stormwater would be released to the slough through a subsurface pipe in the southwest corner of the project site. And with that, I will now turn the presentation over to Mary Israel.
Hello, can you hear me? All right, thank you very much. So for this slide, we just wanted to highlight that staff analyzed the proposed project with the Castroville Community Plan's goals, policies, and specific standards. Overall, the project as conditioned and mitigated adheres with the development standards for mixed-use developments. And staff wanted to note that the context of those standards are within the Merritt Street Opportunity Area. So setbacks are recommended at 0 feet because the vision of the Merritt Street is typically storefronts right along Merritt Corridor. So a 0 setback is recommended, but the higher design goals and policies for frontages are met by the project, which is to add a small setback to allow for landscaping, and that landscaping beautifies the street and screens the long wall of the storage that you saw on those elevations. So it is meeting goals and policies, but maybe not meeting exact the development standards of Appendix B. Furthermore, the design guidelines are gone into at length in the staff report, and staff can go into detail on any of those that you wish, but overall, this project does adhere with Appendix A's design guidelines for mixed use and also for the vision of the Merritt Street Opportunity Area. However, there's always something, and in this case, it's that the CCP did propose a linear park along the slough in the RC portion of this and other parcels. As it says on the slide, this would require a regional planning effort. It's only a concept at this time, and staff understands that it is moving forward into the upcoming draft CCP. So there's opportunity for that effort in future. I'm not going to go into that too much because Kayla did hit on it quite a bit more than I anticipated, but I did want to say that, as Ms. Nelson said in the presentation, the AAC discussions indicate that there's a little bit of a conflict between the requirements to meet ag element policies and also the requirements of the CCP Goal 5 itself, which is further elucidated in Policy 5.1, where they're talking about improving the habitat along the sloughs. And that is part of what fed into this project. So this project has been through redesigns that best restore and protect areas in the RC zone portion of the property. As informed by a biological report, they found that it could be improved to serve habitat. But to improve to serve habitat is at odds with put in a trail, put in picnic areas, put in observation decks, and also it's at odds with that ag element direction and also our specific guidance that says that this has to go into an easement, and the easement shall not have trails. So we'll just leave that. There's a little bit to be considered. Could you click it for me? Thank you. So the county prepared an initial study pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act. It was circulated for public review in October and November of this year. County identified potential significant impacts to biological resources and tribal cultural resources, both due to the proximity to the Tembladero Slough. Now, the biological assessment did not find wetland or protected species on this property. And also the archaeological report included a pedestrian survey that was negative for resources. However, when County HCD decided that the initial study would be prepared, we extended an invitation to consultation with local Native tribes, and as a result of a requested consultation, tribal cultural resources were found to have the potential to be disturbed during earth movement for the construction of the project. Therefore, a tribal cultural monitor is expected to be on site for one of those mitigation measures to stop work during activity if it's needed. And then for biological measures, as informed by the biological report, mitigation measures Bio 1 through Bio 3 would reduce the potentially significant impacts to sensitive animal and plant species that could possibly enter the area during the construction period. And that's through implementation of a pre-construction survey done by the biologist, and for the biologist to oversee installation of fencing to protect the freshwater marsh, potential marsh habitat during construction. And As mentioned a moment ago, the project will also restore that vegetative community near the slough and preserve it through the establishment of an agricultural buffer easement over the freshwater marsh habitat, and that's conditions 7 and 20. The county did receive a couple of comments on the initial study, draft MND, during public review period. One was from Monterey Bay Air Resources District. The other one was Caltrans District 5. Caltrans District 5 proposed edits to the underlying traffic report that informed this project, but when staff reviewed that request for edits, it seemed exorbitant considering that it would have affected one sentence in the initial study itself that was not germane to the conclusions of that section. So staff found that it would be wisest to just redline, strike through that one sentence, that it would, rather than creating that whole cycle of edits, because it did not alter, that sentence did not alter the conclusion of the section it was in. The section it was in was VMT, and as you see in the red line version, it's, I believe on page 67, the sentence itself is just information, auxiliary information about conclusion data. The comment letter from MBARD recommended the project adhere with dust controls measures, which are standard requirements for grading and construction permits from HCD Building Services. So staff reviewed these comments, and based on the circumstances of the project, we determined it doesn't alter the conclusions of the IS, therefore recirculation of the document is not warranted. And we can answer other questions about that if you wish. Click. So we come up to the staff recommendation. The Planning Commission adopt the red line mitigated negative declaration and also adopt a condition compliance mitigation monitoring reporting plan, as well as approve the use permit and design approval based on the findings and evidence that's before you. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you both. Commissioners, Commissioner Daniels?
Thank you. Two questions. The first, and you might have said this, and I'm just not remembering, but the recent flooding that we had, did this property experience any of the flooding in the last big storm?
Through the chair, to my knowledge, no, and perhaps the applicant can speak on that as well.
Okay, and then in terms of the conflict with the Agricultural Advisory Committee and the Castroville Community Plan, conflict aside, is there room in this proposal, if the conflict were to be resolved, for at least a trail to connect, or are we, by putting this project here, closing off the opportunity to have a connection, whether or not there's picnic benches and things in this location, the connection of the community park trail? Does this project impede that progress in the future, or is there space, if the conflict were to be resolved, to have at least the connection through this site?
Through the chair, yes, there would be the potential to have a trail along the southern property line. The applicant does not propose to develop in that area whatsoever. And so there would be room along the slough in the future.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Roberts?
Sort of similarly, it's unfortunate that the most recent Ag Advisory notes aren't available, minutes aren't available, and I think you guys probably summarized them well. My only curiosity is in knowing who the two no's were, just because this is an advisory committee who typically agrees with each other, and so, in being able to understand the issues, and do you happen to know how the vote fell, who was in favor and who was not?
Through the chair, are you asking for specific names?
Yeah, if you knew.
Mark Del Piero, and then the second person, not sure. I could pull up the minutes if you'd like.
You have them?
I have a draft copy, but I don't have.
Well, yeah, if you have access to
not
the draft,
the adopted.
The draft is, yeah.
It is in my folder, yeah. Give me one moment, please.
Okay, I see the team is sort of taken up, and then I have a separate question if we want to be looking for that, which is to do with the construction management plan. Looking at 16,000 imported yards of fill. I didn't remember finding, but perhaps you could show me the route from where it's coming and where it's going, because that's, 1,600 10-yard trucks. Be nice to know how that's envisioned, like where it's coming from, for one thing, seeing as how the slough is of interest.
Through the chair, hold on one moment.
I think just as Ms. Nelson is doing that, just a brief comment, if I may, through the chair. The Castroville Community Plan was adopted in 2007, what's changed significantly since then is, one, we have our 2010 general plan, which and then our code that incorporates agricultural buffers and concerns and buffers around access to pedestrians, but also substantially what's changed and what was a part of the discussion with the Agricultural Advisory Committee is food safety and market influences of food safety. And so the concept in the Castroville Community Plan of a trail that goes along the slough that is immediately adjacent to agriculture and any of the development on those properties adjacent, it's going to be something we have to grapple with regardless, because of that very substantial change just over the last 20 years.
Through the chair, I can't find the draft minutes at this time.
Well, that's understandable. I think it was fairly recent, was it not? It was October. Okay, well, if that arises, we'll certainly hope that you'll share it. Has this project got any limitations on the use of alarms in the self-storage? That was an issue that's come forward in previous self-storage applications.
Through the chair, I don't believe so.
It might be something I would be really interested in. They're very loud, and even though it's not in a residential area, it's still a significant noise impact if they're at the same volume as other such facilities. Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you. Maybe anybody can clarify this for me. This is the first time I've seen a residence on a storage facility. So I'm wondering if that would also help with any alarms that go off, because you have somebody, is the plan that there is going to be somebody on site 24 hours a day?
Through the chair, yes. The residential unit is intended for the manager of the property.
All right, thank you. And then I just wanted to kind of maybe expand, because I am familiar with the area on that slough. It's not really a slough that I would ever want to walk near in that area, and something that would be pleasant to take a walk and have some sit on a bench and eat is very far off for that area.
Currently. Yeah, I guess the alarms I'm talking about are frequent alarms that happen when people don't. I have a storage unit, and if you don't key in the right key at the right time, a loud alarm goes off. And this happens during all of the working hours, during the times that I've been there, and recently I've been there a lot because I've had reason to be. 3 or 4 times during a 5-hour period, you'll get a loud alarm that goes off. And even if it only goes off for a brief period of time, and it's absolutely audible far beyond the confines of the building. And that was what I believe came up in a previous project on the same kind of a use. And that person, that owner agreed not to use such alarms.
Through the chair, I've received recent information that there is no alarms proposed.
Okay, so I'd like that to be written down if that's the case. And again, we're back to the management of the fill. Where does it come from, and how's that gonna work?
Sure, I can take this. So the CMP shows 12 truckloads per day for up to 18 months coming from Monterey Regen, and it would be coming up Del Monte Boulevard, Salinas.
12 trucks a day.
For up to 18 months.
That's a long period of time for a fill project before you begin something. That means they're going to not commence construction until the completion of 18 months?
That's what's in the construction management plan.
Okay, do you have a route plan you could put up? I'm probably in my packet, and I probably just didn't have it.
I could probably do this. It's just in the plans. Do you want this? Or are you going to share the screen share?
All right. Looking at that particular routing, it becomes extremely important what time of day that happens, at least in my view. And Caltrans was okay with this construction management plan?
I'm texting with Bora Akaya, but he could also just speak in the hearing. So Bora, would you please raise your hand to be recognized? He's texted me that part of the CMP says for the first 30 days during construction activities, there would be over 12 truckloads per day and over 200 yards of earthwork per day.
He is here with his hand up if you care to speak.
Good morning, Commissioners. I was going to just say exactly what Mary said earlier. It'll be about first 30 days, 12 truckloads per day, about 200 yards of earthwork per day.
And so this is an impacted section of road, as I'm sure you're well aware, particularly during some peak times. You know, that's got to be of concern to people, especially that right turn at the top. I think the limitation here says 8 to whatever. I'm having trouble reading it. 8 to 5. Yeah, so I'm just concerned about the addition of that kind of construction traffic. And when you say trucks, you're talking dual trailer trucks, or, I mean, how big are these trucks? Because 200 divided by 10 is 20. So it's bigger than a 10-yard truck. Anyway, my point being, I'd like to see really clear specification for that much earth movement, and I see that there are some here, that is intended to protect the traveling public in a stretch of road that is not only crowded but dangerous. I mean, that's a nasty intersection at the top. That's a lot of folks come through there various times of day, not necessarily the standard commute. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at that before we go ahead and say, yeah, 16,000 cubic yards of dirt, whatever. So that's my concern.
So would you like staff to make sure that Caltrans is involved in the review of this when it goes to construction permitting to make recommendations of alternative routes? Is that what you're seeking?
I am not concerned about process. I'm concerned about outcome. You guys get to figure out how you're going to get there. Okay. What I want the condition to say is that we are concerned about that particular route's safety and its capacity. And so whatever the construction management plan is, it's going to minimize disruption to the known traffic levels that we have there, and be fully cognizant of that's a more than 90-degree right turn with a big truck at the top at an intersection that keeps killing people. So I don't know what the proper language for that is, but that's my concern. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone is still looking for those Agricultural Advisory Committee meeting minutes, because knowing that at least one of the votes was Mr. Del Piero, I'm very curious about those notes. And two, as having been on having had a very recent front row seat to grading and construction of this magnitude, that number of trucks is like the bare minimum, because the amount of trucks that will be bringing in earth movers and all the stuff that entails is absolutely many times more than what they're talking about. And I would, if you can bring that route back up, I would prefer to see that not utilize that Highway 1 route. My husband travels it every day. It's so impacted. It's so congested. It doesn't matter the time of year, and the traffic starts early and backs up very far. So I don't know if there's an alternative that could take them a different way.
I don't myself wouldn't want to put myself in the place of doing the engineering. I just have driven that a lot, and that's a scary looking route. Mr. Akaya, would you like to comment on that from a professional standpoint rather than a random passerby statement?
Yes, thank you. Again, this is Borak from Engineering Services. We can definitely add a traffic control plan condition controlling the intersection with the flaggers, along with we need to talk to Caltrans if they approve
that intersection.
Traffic control plan.
I'm sorry, but that's implausible at that intersection. Just fundamentally implausible. That's not how that intersection works. Might do better coming through the other way. I mean, think about it. There's that angled approach. You're going to stop the two-lane traffic coming down through Moss Landing. I don't think that seems like a good thing to plan for from my point of view. Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you. Another thing that would be of concern for me is at that turn, while there is a turnout, a side that trucks can take, it's going to block a lot of the visibility. And I've had some very close calls commuting that way when people can see me and they still pull out or do absolutely insane things. So having a giant semi-trucks and other kind of big vehicles blocking the visibility for people trying to get onto the highway is not ideal, in my opinion. And I would prefer if they used that other route that's kind of less highlighted. I don't know if that's a possibility.
Okay, I really appreciated that picture. If we can continue showing it. That was great. I don't know, maybe it's just, I've had the same experience as Commissioner Shaw. I've had 2 close calls in that particular location. So I'm really, and seen a number of accidents there. So yeah, we're dominating the conversation. Other commissioners, did you have anything to add? And then we can certainly leave this for a minute for the pros to take a look and see if they can come up with other alternatives, although I will say that the suggestion of flagging doesn't allay my personal concerns, kind of makes them worse. But we do need to then ask the applicant to come speak their piece if the applicant or the applicant's representative would like to do so. We can come back to this. Perhaps people can have an opportunity to think about it. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. And thanks, Mary and Kayla, for a lot of work and a great presentation. Well, first thing, before I even introduce myself, I want to say that the last storm, it did not flood. So I remember that was the question that I think you asked, so I just want to check that off. Not used to speaking in public, so here we go. Okay, so my name's Barbara French. These are my parents, Mike and Adie Chernus. I have a husband and 4 adult children. I just wanted to give a little history about myself, just kind of quickly. I went to high school in SoCal in Santa Cruz County, went down to UCSD to go to college. got married down there, had 4 kids, and lived down there until about 2016, came back up to the peninsula, and lived here for a few more years, and then my husband took a job up in the Northwest, so we've been looking to try to get a cottage in Carmel for many years, and we recently bought one in September, so that'll be our forever home. My parents live in Pacific Grove, and so that's kind of our history with the peninsula. We have a love for it. This will be the place that we live. That's it, so we're pretty excited about that. Our experience as a family, we're a contractor family. My father, his father, and his father were all builders. We built, own, and operate 2 self-storage facilities, one in Palmdale and one in Lompoc. So we've done this before, and we're very comfortable. They're very similar design to this, meaning all single-story drive-up, not the unmanned, multiple story, open 24-hour kind of cityscape, but more of a rural, smaller town kind of feel. We picked Castroville because there is no storage in Castroville, and we believe that it is needed. And we've done feasibility studies to show that we expect it to fill within a 5-mile radius. So mostly Castroville, maybe a little bit in Moss Landing, tiny bit of Prindale, maybe northern end of Marina. Why this project? I hit on a few things. I think it'll enhance the street. I'm proud of the design. I think it'll be very secure. We have 10-foot fence. 10-foot walls around the entire structure. We have a 10-foot entrance gate and exit gate, all with keypad entry. There will be security cameras at all locations, including inside the office. There was no alarm system, no loud alarm system. We do like to have the managers live on the property. It is kind of the way it used to be done. It's not always done this way anymore, but it allows for someone always to be there in case something goes wrong, or even for customer service if someone wants to see, maybe I want this storage and not that one, or, sometimes, things go wrong, and it's nice to have people who care about the space there. We also have 2 part-time workers that will come in when the managers are not working, because they work 5 days a week. The office will be open 9 to 6, Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5 on Sunday, and the gate will be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. What else can I tell you about? Sorry. Our project is 100% solar powered. We have no natural gas. We have storage, battery storage, so that if power goes out, we will not lose service for our customers or for the residents that live upstairs. Sorry. I don't know. I don't know if I have anything else to say other than, I understand it's a lot of fill, and, I understand that we hope that we can root it in the right way that makes everybody happy, and we're happy to do whatever is needed. So anyways, I hope things go well, and thank you for your time. Do you have any questions for me, or do you want any more information from me?
Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Daniels has a question for you, and breathing is allowed.
Before we get into questions, I just want to, while it's on the top of my mind, just appreciate the idea of the on-site manager. And that's not normal in this area, and it's a housing unit, and it's a job, and it also is more secure and personable, and it, I'm sure, makes the operation run a whole lot more smoothly. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we're actually building a really lovely 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and we end up having people that work for us for a really long time. And I did want to say something. We are constantly, and I don't know if this makes a difference, but constantly approached about selling our current facilities to, the big guys, and we will never do it. It's a family business. We have 4 children. They will be part of the business. They will eventually help us run it, just like I do and my brother does with my parents. And so it's something that will stay in the family, and we're staying in the peninsula, which is another reason why we chose Castroville. So thank you.
All right, did you have a question, or you just wanted to have an appreciation?
Mine was just an appreciation. I'm looking forward to the continued conversation.
Excellent. All right.
Say one more thing on the film.
One more thing, yes.
Sorry about that. My dad had a question. When someone said 18 months of fill, it's not that much. I don't know if that was an error, but just wanted to, it can't be that long.
Thank you. As this is just a discussion of the words in the construction management plan, we want to make them match reality. Appreciate that very much. So this would be the time for anybody else, and there's no one here in the chambers to come forward. So is there anybody online who would like to speak on this matter, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Ricardo Diaz.
Hi, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. I was listening all day, and I live in Castro and wanted to speak on this. I traveled that area during the storm twice daily to see how and record the water level like every day when it was flooding and stuff like that. And Phil's Fish Market, had a lot of water that went all the way like halfway up their driveway, and then there's another apartment complex at the other end, more north, that had their water flood into their parking lot in the back, probably a third of the way up. Although those properties along that street didn't flood, some of them didn't flood, but they all got water coming up a little bit. I think I may be a little inaccurate on a couple properties, and I just have I do appreciate the family owned. I just heard that, and then that they'll never sell to the big boys, so that's really good to hear. The sheriff response time is pretty horrible. If there's any robberies or anything like that, it's something to consider. It takes forever for them to get there. Not sure if the community was notified well enough ahead of time. The meetings, like, no one attends, and I'm the type of person that spreads the meetings times and dates to everyone, and wants as much people's input as possible. And the traffic is one thing. Anyone that knows the traffic is horrific a few times a day, and everyone uses it to commute, and that's just a bigger thing to talk about. So I just want to add those little concerns in there, and don't really have anything much else to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your thoughts. Madam Clerk, anyone else?
No, and we have no additional emails.
All right, that being the case, there's nothing to respond to. Well, I guess there is. If the applicant would like to say anything about what they've heard from the comments, you're welcome to do that. No, if you have anything to say, you got to come on up.
To say that he was on the property during the storm and that there was not flooding. He just wanted to reiterate that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Staff, anything further?
Yes, through the chair, I found the draft notes, and the 2 no's were Mark Del Piero and Sherwood Darrington, for the record.
Okay. Interesting. Is there any articulation, again, can you remind us of what the difference of opinion was? Is it recorded in the minutes?
These are action minutes. Let me see. Hold on one second.
No. Okay. I hate guessing. While you're doing that, I think Mr. Akaya's hand is back up again. You have something to add? Hopefully.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. We can edit the condition number 18 and reroute the trucks through 183 to Cooper to North Shore Road to get to the Regen Monterey. Because I just checked, I totally missed that. You cannot make a left turn on Highway 1 to get into southbound Highway 1 from 183.
Where I think this is northbound, they're bringing Phil in.
Well, they got to go both ways.
Oh, that is correct. That is correct.
Madam Chair, from Cooper Malero, they'll be making a left onto Highway 1, both directions, or a right onto it coming into Salinas and a left.
I got to see a picture. Go back to Google Earth, or who's the Google Earth person? Ms. Kenga, is that you? I don't quite see how that would work in my head, which doesn't mean it won't, but it just means my head doesn't. There's a way to do this. It's just Highway 1 right there is fraught with peril, so. We got to go.
So you would access, going towards the property, you would leave from the environmental park and then access Nashua. And then you would take Cooper to 183. This would be a left-hand turn. Then you could take 183 down to, I believe it's Preston, and then you can access Templadero through Preston. That would avoid the sharp right-hand turn.
Yeah, it's a long way around, but it seems a lot safer to me.
Nashua and Cooper are accessed by more ag trucks, so they're larger trucks, but it's definitely a lot less typical vehicle traffic.
Well, truck traffic is truck traffic. It's designed for that, as I think of it in my mind. I personally would advocate for the route that does not involve Highway 1, and I would even want that specified in the construction management plan condition if that were agreeable to everyone. I don't like that part. This seems a lot more sensible to me. Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you. So just to clarify for me, that would not just be the earth-moving vehicles. This would be, I don't know where the other stuff would be coming from. Where would these, big backhoes and whatnot be coming from? And do we have any control over that? Or is that outside of our purview?
I don't know. Mr. Kaya, do you know anything about that? Left us because
on behalf of Mr. Akaya, through the chair, yes, this is a construction management plan that we're talking about, and condition number 18. So it would involve all of the gear that is involved in construction management. So he's willing to make an edit there that specifies that Highway 1 will not be part of the CMP routes for this project.
It makes me feel a lot better. Thank you very much for all that extra effort. Okay, we're now, I think, if staff has answered what they have to answer, we have additional questions for them, or are they ready to take an action? Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you. We don't have any notes about why they voted at the Agricultural Advisory Committee, correct?
Through the chair, with my recollection of the meeting, it had more to do with the potential future trail system. Yeah, for that project.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of discussion and concern about trying to reconcile food safety, trails, and habitat protection. So probably not going to solve that in this application. Just guessing. All right. Anybody want to take any action or propose any action or do anything? It would be a second district thing, so I'm looking over here to my left. Due to the fact that we only have one representative from that district here today.
I guess I'll make the motion. I usually don't do it because I don't know how to say it and sound professional the way everyone else does. So I like the project. I like what they've proposed. I'd like to approve it as it's been presented.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Commissioner Shaw has moved and Commissioner Gonzalez has seconded a motion to approve staff's recommendation with the alterations discussed here in the meeting, correct? Yeah, okay. And that includes the construction management plan. And we don't know, you already had the indemnification in this one, right? We didn't need that.
Through the chair, we will memorialize that there's no alarms.
Good thinking. Thank you. All right, everybody clear? That being the case, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Any abstentions? And the ayes have it. Congratulations. I know, we don't allow applause usually, but in this case, I think that was very polite and appropriate. All right. It's been a long day, everyone, but we have, I think, gotten through our items, and we're now just looking at other matters and the department report. And I will turn to the secretary for those. What's up?
Thank you. There are no other matters that I am aware of. I had two follow-ups that I wanted to announce with the commission. The first one is that our Moss Landing community plan has been being updated, and we are initiating the environmental review process. And we have released the notice of preparation for the EIR for Castroville, and I did want to let this group know that there is a public meeting on this Friday evening in Castroville at Moss Landing Marine Labs for those who are interested in commenting for the scoping for the environmental impact report being prepared for the updates to the Moss Landing community plan. And so we are moving forward there. The other item that I wanted to update this group on is that the Board of Supervisors on December 4th held a workshop talking about vacation rentals in response to the recently approved vacation rental ordinances. And just a very brief update based on the outcome of that. There were no changes recommended at this time from the board. The board did acknowledge that there are some areas that they'd like to review. Some of the highlights from the action, they did take action wanting to establish a committee to look at farm stays in particular, not necessarily liking the way that rentals on agricultural lands are treated as commercial vacation rentals. Also concurred with staff to have us go ahead and return in the fall of 2025 after we've had a year to implement the inland ordinances and hopefully some time to implement the coastal so that we can report back on how the program's working. And the other item is we did notify the board had received there's been a filing of litigation for the vacation rental ordinances, and so that is something that as well may come into consideration. The ordinances are with the Coastal Commission currently. We have tentative in the spring for the Coastal Commission to consider those regulations. And I believe those are the salient take-homes for you all.
So as a question, we are currently operating under the adopted inland regulations at this time, is that correct?
Yeah, so in the inland areas of the county, the regulations were effective on October 14th, and we are starting to process permits under that. We have issued our first homestay vacation rental operator's license, and I believe this week the zoning administrator may be hearing the first commercial vacation rental. If not this week, then perhaps in January. So very soon we are processing. We have received upwards of 20 applications. As of now, we have rejected some that don't qualify. The coastal regulations, for the inland regulations, they're individuals who are operating without permits have 6 months from the effective date, so until April 14th to come into compliance with our new regulations. And then for the coastal zone, from when they're adopted, they would come back, and from their effective date, there would be 2 months for individuals to come into compliance at that point in the coastal zone.
Okay, and we still are, as far as we know, anticipating the Coastal Commission hearing. I think it's in March, the first in the quarter. We don't know yet for sure.
I believe in March there is a Central Coast meeting, and preliminary conversations with Coastal Commission staff is that they would like to hit that one. I will again note that we are reviewing, as I did say, there was some litigation filed, and so should anything need to be refined, we will advise the board and go from there.
Thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
So going back to what you said nothing changed between, I'm going to the public comment letters that we've received, and there was concern that something had changed. It was essentially a loophole, and I'm not remembering exactly what it was, but that the Board of Supervisors had potentially made a minor change.
Non-homeowners operating homestays?
Could be. Oh, that's right. Long-term renters then operating homestays or something.
So that was one idea that had come up from the Board of Supervisors, and they had heard the possibility, but there was no direction to make that change at this time. It could be discussed when we return. I'm not recalling anything else specifically. I'm not sure. Okay.
So I guess I just procedurally, maybe council can help with this. So if litigation has been filed and it asks for an injunction, what might that do to our schedule? I mean, how does that processed? Is there a period of time while that's being discussed, or is there a timeline for the court or judge to decide? Or I'm just trying to, everybody seems to think that this means business as usual because we don't know if it's really going to go through or not. But we just operate according to the inland rules now until somebody says not, right? I mean, I'm hoping there won't be an injunction because we worked really hard, but if there's a legal case asking for that, how does that work?
There'd have to be a lot of assumptions here, but presuming a request for a preliminary injunction, it would be, usually would be a noticed hearing. There'd be time for the parties to brief it, unless they brought it ex parte, in which case it could be heard quicker, and it would all just depend on the judge. But typically there is several stages. There's a temporary restraining order that would go first, pending to the hearing, and then a preliminary injunction could issue. And in that case, depending on the term, I suppose it would depend on how long. And there's a lot of details that would be required, but to opine. But I think that's the gist of it. Is it would. I guess I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to answer the question, but there's so many unknowns. It's difficult. I think it would really depend on how the judge wanted to frame an injunction, and I would hope that our counsel could work with opposing counsel to structure it in a way that would be least disruptive for the county.
I guess my bottom line was, is this going to mean that if somebody has now gone to the trouble of proceeding through the new process, is that going to affect them? I mean, if potentially we have a person with a homestay permit right now, did that, looking forward to it, everything good. They hear there's a lawsuit, they're going, oh my gosh, am I going to get to do this? And that, I don't know exactly how to answer that question to them.
Just from a brief read, and it is available publicly, I believe. Generally, the concern with the legal concerns of the complainant were related to cases and ways in which we limited who could do certain types of vacation rentals, not with how we've said who can do it. So this is not a legal analysis, but generally speaking, the concern was more the ways in which we limited or prohibited certain types or certain types of entities, et cetera, from operating vacation rentals. Not as much concern with the ways in which we allowed individuals or to come through with the existing permit.
Without providing any kind of legal input, it's just when you get a question, is it going to be, I went through this thing, now what? And so my response based on that would be, it's probably not going to change your operation in the immediate future. We don't know for sure, but we don't think so.
Yeah, and we are continuing in the inland area to operate, and these are the effective regulations at this time, and so individuals who are seeking permits should come in.
It's worth it. All right. Commissioner Roberts.
I should have said this this morning, but I just want to thank the clerks of the commission for all of their work, and especially the large maps that I know take extra time to do. It's super helpful for me personally when I get those packets. So I just want to continue to thank you for that extra work.
Second. All right. If there's nothing else before the commission, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 3:22 p.m. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you, I believe, in the new year.